surviving after crash landing in another world. Minjun dragged the broad, split plank toward the large entrance. Standing it upright would cover most of the opening. He braced the unbroken side against the wall and pushed at the bottom. Wet spores struck the outer face of the plank. Less blue light drifted inside as well.
Wait.
Sol pointed toward the back. The strip of cloth in front of the low gap was fluttering harder than before. Its end streamed deep into the shelter. Minjun pushed the plank a little farther. The strip of cloth lifted off the floor. Cold air from the rear rushed inside all at once, carrying spores with it.
Pull it back.
When Minjun pulled the plank away, the draft from the back weakened. Blocking one side wouldn't solve the problem. The wind would simply funnel through whatever opening remained. And if they blocked the large entrance with the plank, they wouldn't be able to escape through it quickly. Minjun laid the plank flat on the floor.
If we block both, there won't be any airflow.
And we don't have enough material to block both anyway.
Sol lowered herself into a sitting position with one hand against the wall. She made no attempt to stand. She kept her right foot raised off the floor and extended in front of her. Minjun crossed the water channel and picked out several wet strips of cloth. He covered his mouth and nose with the cleaner inner side of one, then handed another to Sol. He didn't know whether the water was safe to drink, but they had to use it to filter the spores. They covered their wounds as well. To keep the untested water from touching his skin directly, Minjun wrapped the wet cloth only over the tear in his pants. He covered the burn on his right arm with his sleeve. Sol pulled down the hem of her pants to cover her swollen ankle. They didn't brush away the spores that had already drifted inside. Wiping them with their hands or clothes might only smear the wet powder over a wider area.
I'll watch outside.
Minjun spoke.
Sol, stay here and watch the wind.
I'll watch the cloth and water too.
Sol pulled the strip of cloth in front of the low gap slightly inward. She held a finger beneath the spot where water dripped from the ceiling, intending to watch which way the droplets splashed when they fell. First, the two of them agreed on signals.
1 knock means keep going.
Sol struck the wall once.
2 means stop and come back inside. 3 means abandon the barricade and escape through the other side.
Minjun nodded.
If you knock 3 times, we leave the plank behind too.
He took off his wet outer garment and left it near the large entrance. He gathered the spore-covered cloth and the plank beside it, then examined the floor of the entrance. An old groove ran along the floor. It extended diagonally from the center of the entrance toward the right wall. The shallow water channel directly below it ran in the same direction. Soot stains marked the opposite side, along the inner left wall. The old fire pit lay behind it. Instead of standing the plank parallel to the entrance, Minjun set it diagonally along the groove. But the angle wasn't sharp enough. The wind swept around the inner end of the plank and spread left, spraying wet spores as far as the front of the fire pit. The instant Minjun started coughing, he retreated inside. Sol pointed to the right wall.
Turn the inner end of the plank farther that way, away from the fire pit.
After catching his breath, Minjun went back out. He turned the plank as far as Sol had indicated, and the wind bent along the right wall. The wet spores followed it toward the wall and the water channel below. Minjun wedged stones beneath and beside the plank. 2 knocks soon followed.
That stone's too big. We won't be able to shove the plank aside in an emergency.
He replaced the large stone with 2 smaller ones. The plank held against the wind, but when he pushed it with his shoulder from inside, it toppled outward. A few spores leaked through the split, but the escape route and fire pit remained clear. That left the gap at the rear. Minjun selected flat stones scattered around it. He leaned 2 against each side of the gap to narrow the opening, leaving the middle slightly wider than Sol's shoulders.
Can't we make it narrower?
It has to be wide enough for you to crawl through.
Minjun hung 2 pieces of wet cloth in front of the gap. He draped one over the outer stones and the other over the inner stones, leaving both loose rather than pulling them taut. When the wind blew in, the cloths billowed one after the other. Wet spores clung to the first, and the remainder caught on the second. He didn't block the opening all the way to the floor. Cold air continued to flow through a hand-high gap at the bottom. Still seated, Sol lowered herself. When she pushed one of the inner stones aside, the 2 layers of cloth opened to the side. There was enough room for her to squeeze through using only her hands and left knee. Minjun reset the stone and cloth. The spores entering through the 2 openings decreased noticeably. The plank at the large entrance kept getting wetter, and the cloth at the back fluttered whenever the wind shifted. Both barriers would need constant attention. Minjun laid a line of stones between the work area by the large entrance and the shelter behind the angled wall. He left his wet outer garment and the spore-covered cloth outside the line, then moved the food and water bottle inside. Sol also set the wet cloth she was holding outside the line. They kept only 1 piece of dry cloth inside.
Anything wet or covered in spores stays outside.
Water and food stay inside.
They briefly confirmed the rules. Only then did Minjun take the ember from his backpack. The red speck inside the bark was nearly dead. He placed it on the blackened ground behind the angled wall and added a tiny amount of dry bark. Sol blew on it gently. The red speck spread. A small flame rose, but Minjun immediately stood 2 flat stones in front of it to block the light. Enough water had collected in the bottle beneath the ceiling to cover its bottom. After checking the smell, Minjun tilted the bottle while keeping its mouth pointed upward. He propped it on 2 stones and placed only the lower part, containing the water near the weak coals. The flame never touched the plastic. As the water heated, Sol's gaze settled on the bottle.
Did you have that bottle the last time we died?
I did, but I couldn't save the water.
Why not?
Minjun couldn't answer at once. He saw the bottle rolling toward the pit again, along with Sol's hand reaching for him.
I could only grab one of the 2. I grabbed your hand.
Sol didn't thank him.
And we both died anyway?
We opened the exit, but we fell into the pit together. The black one struck you first. I covered you and took the blow to my back.
As he finished speaking, Minjun's back went rigid. The impact of his death remained vivid in his memory. The bottom of the bottle began to soften. Minjun moved it a little farther from the coals, then removed it as soon as the water boiled and leaned it against a stone to cool.
If we drink all of this, it'll take a long time to collect more.
Minjun nodded at Sol's words.
Let's test it 1 sip at a time.
Once the water was lukewarm, Minjun took the first sip. His throat stung, but no differently from the pain caused by inhaling the spores. Sol took a sip as well. They waited for a while. Neither of their throats swelled, nor did their stomachs cramp. They left the remaining water in the bottle. They still didn't have an abundant supply. But now they had a process. Collect water from the groove in the ceiling, boil it beside the weak coals, let it cool, then test it a little at a time. Instead of using the broad plank at the entrance, Minjun picked up one of the thin, rotten boards left nearby. When he shaved away the decayed outer layer with his knife, he uncovered 2 straight, sturdy pieces of wood. Sol wiggled her toes first to make sure she could still feel them. Minjun tore the dry cloth they had kept inside into long strips. He folded a short piece and placed it against her skin, then used the longer strips to bind the wooden pieces to either side of her ankle. Sol slid a finger under the cloth herself to check how tight it was.
Loosen just the outside a little.
Minjun adjusted only that part. Even with the splint in place, Sol still couldn't stand on her right foot. At least it kept her ankle from bending sideways as much. Minjun's left knee continued to throb. The burn on his right arm still radiated heat. They didn't have enough water or cloth to treat the wounds. He merely inspected them, then covered them with his clothes again. The 2 sat beside the shielded fire. The sound of the spore rain continued, but the blue moisture no longer reached inside the stone line. The small fire remained lit as well. For the first time, the 2 of them caught their breath without anything chasing them. Because of the impact he had just remembered, Minjun couldn't bring himself to lean his back against the wall. Sol watched him for a moment.
When you first came to save me, you said we'd both died here.
Yes.
The place where I was trapped had a collapsed wall, a water groove, and a fire pit too. Now that I think about it, that place was another outpost like this one.
Minjun nodded slowly. Sol looked him straight in the eye.
Tell me from the beginning how we died at that outpost.